This is a edited intro to the video that I just recorded about Pilate. Mistakenly referred to him as Herod in the introduction, and so now I am doing a new video, and so you're going to kind of get shuffled right into the discussion. And the reason is because I have to tell you that it's about Pilate and not about Herod. So sorry about that, but it's a few minutes long and I didn't want to redo the whole thing, so I'm just going to do an edited intro and tie it in with the rest of the message. So thanks. So there's going to be a few sources from Josephus, one from Philo, and then a couple from Eusebius. And so Josephus was a first century Jewish historian. Philo was a Jewish philosopher that lived from 20 BC to 50 AD. And then Eusebius was a church historian who actually wrote the first church history covering the 300 years from Christ to Constantine. And he lived from 260 to 339 AD. So that all the quotations will be noted at the bottom of the final screen. And so hopefully this will give a little bit of background. We're going to look at 6 different things that Pilate did that did not create the best of relationships with Jerusalem, and then ultimately look at how it is traditionally told that Pilate was removed as governor, and what ultimately happened to him along the way. So let's begin first of all with a quotation from Josephus, and this is making reference to the fact that Pilate brought in some Roman flags, some banners into Jerusalem, and in the minds of the Jews that defiled the city. No Roman procurator had done that before, so there was open hostility, especially not only did Pilate do this, but he did it at night. So let's read what Josephus has to say. But now Pilate, the procurator of Judea, removed the army from Caesarea to Jerusalem to take their winter quarters there in order to abolish the Jewish laws. So he introduced Caesar's effigies, which were upon the ensigns, and brought them into the city, whereas our law forbids us the very making of images. So Josephus writes as a Jew, saying, this is us. We're not allowed to do this. On which account the former procurators were wont to make their entry into the city with such ensigns as had not those ornaments. Pilate was the first who brought those images to Jerusalem and set them up there, which was done without the knowledge of the people, because it was done in the nighttime. But as soon as they knew it, they came in multitudes to Caesarea and interceded with Pilate many days, that he would remove the images, and when he would not grant their request, because it would tend to the injury of Caesar, while yet they persevered in their request, on the 6th day he ordered his soldiers to have their weapons privately, while he came and sat upon his judgment seat, which seat was so prepared in the open place of the city that it concealed the army that lay ready to oppress them. And when the Jews petitioned him again, he gave a signal to the soldiers to encompass them around, and threatened that their punishment should be no less than immediate death, unless they would leave off disturbing him and go their ways home. But they threw themselves upon the ground and laid their necks bare, and said they would take their death very willingly, rather than the wisdom of their laws should be transgressed. Upon which Pilate was deeply affected with their firm resolution to keep their laws inviolable, and presently commanded the images to be carried back from Jerusalem to Caesarea. As I said, that's a quotation from Josephus. Another thing that Pilate did that wasn't all that endearing to the Jews is he created coinage with his image on the front. On one side, you have a coinage that had the image of Pilate. The other side is that of Tiberius. And so these coinages that Pilate introduced was also another thing that did not bode well for his relationship with the Jews. A third thing that Pilate did was he took the sacred money, the korban, money that had been set aside for sacred use, and he used it to build aqueducts into Jerusalem. Now, the project in and of itself was a helpful thing, but not the use of the sacred money. So here is that incident. But Pilate undertook to bring a current of water to Jerusalem, and did it with the sacred money, and derived the origin of the stream from the distance of 200 furlongs. However, the Jews were not pleased with what had been done about this water, and many 10,000s of the people got together and made a clamor against him, and insisted that he should leave off that design. Some of them also used reproaches and abused the man as crowds of such people usually do. So he habited a great number of his soldiers in their habit, who carried daggers under their garments, and sent them to a place where they might surround them. So he bade the Jews himself go away, but they boldly casting reproaches upon him, he gave the soldiers that signal which had been beforehand agreed on, who laid upon them much greater blows than Pilate had commanded them, and equally punished those that were tumultuous, and those that were not. Nor did they spare them in the least, and since the people were unarmed, and were caught by men prepared for what they were about, there was a great number of them slain by this means, and others of them ran away wounded, and thus an end was put to this sedition. Once again, another quotation from Josephus. The fourth example is actually from our New Testament, from the Gospel of Luke, and I've entitled it The Bloody Galilean Sacrifice. We're not really sure exactly what happened, other than apparently some Galileans made a blood sacrifice, and Pilate had them killed so that their blood mingled in with the blood of their sacrifice. So Luke chapter 13, verse 1. There were some present at the very time who told him about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with their sacrifices. As I said, not completely sure exactly what incident is being referred to, but apparently Galileans provided a sacrifice. Pilate had them killed so that their blood mingled in with the blood of the sacrifice. The fifth incident involving Herod was the bringing in of golden shields into Herod's palace. Quote, "Moreover, I have it in my power to relate one act of ambition on his part." This is a quotation from Pliny. "Though I suffered an infinite number of evils when he was alive, but nevertheless the truth is considered dear, and much be honored by you. Pilate was one of the emperor's lieutenants, having been appointed governor of Judea. He, not more with the object of doing honor to Tiberius than with that of vexing the multitude, dedicated some gilt shields in the palace of Herod in the holy city, which had no form nor any other forbidden thing represented on them except some necessary inscription which mentioned these two facts: the name of the person who had placed them there, and the person in whose honor they were so placed there. But when the multitude heard what had been done, and when the circumstance became notorious, then the people, putting forward the 4 sons of the king, who were in no respect inferior to the kings themselves, these are the sons of Herod, in fortune or in rank, and his other descendants, and those magistrates who were among them at the time, entreated him to alter and to rectify the innovation which he had committed in respect of the shields, and not to make any alteration in their national customs, which had hitherto been preserved without interruption, without being in the least degree changed by any king of emperor. But when he steadfastly refused this petition, for he was a man of very inflexible disposition," this is speaking of Herod, or of Pilate, and very merciless as well as very obstinate. They cried out, "Do not cause a sedition. Do not make war upon us. Do not destroy the peace which exists. The honor of the emperor is not identical with dishonor to the ancient laws. Let it not be to you a pretense for heaping insult on our nation. Tiberius is not desirous that any of our laws or customs shall be destroyed. And if you yourself say that he is, show us either some command from him or some letter or something of the kind, that we who have been sent to you as ambassadors may cease to trouble you and may address our supplications to your master." But this last sentence exasperated him in the greatest possible degree, as he feared lest they might in reality go on an embassy to the emperor and might impeach him with respect to other particulars of his government, in respect of his corruption and his acts of insolence and his rapine and his habit of insulting people and his cruelty and his continual murders of people untried and uncondemned and his never-ending and gratuitous and most grievous inhumanity. Therefore, being exceedingly angry and being at all times a man of most ferocious passions, he was in great perplexity, neither venturing to take down what he had once set up, nor wishing to do anything which could be acceptable to his subjects, and at the same time being sufficiently acquainted with the firmness of Tiberius on these points. And those who were in power in our nation, seeing this, and perceiving that he was inclined to change his mind as to what had been done, but that he was not willing to be thought to do so, wrote a most supplicatory letter to Tiberius. And he, when he had read it, what did he say of Pilate, and what threats did he utter against him? But it is beside our purpose at present to relate to you how very angry he was, although he was not very liable to sudden anger, since the facts speak for themselves. For immediately, without putting anything off till the next day, he wrote a letter, reproaching and reviling him in the most bitter manner for his act of unprecedented audacity and wickedness, and commanding him immediately to take down the shields and to convey them away from the metropolis of Judea to Caesarea, on the sea which had been named Caesarea Augusta, after his grandfather, in order that they might be set up in the temple of Augustus. And accordingly they were set up in the edifice. And in this way he provided for two matters, both for the honor due the emperor and for the preservation of ancient customs of the city. Once again, Philo was a Jewish philosopher that lived from 20 BC to 50 AD. So he was alive, he was in Jerusalem during the reign of Pilate. Number 6, stopping a Samaritan prophet. This is another quotation from Josephus. But the nation of the Samaritans did not escape with tumults. The man who excited them to it was one who thought lying a thing of little consequence, and who contrived everything so that the multitude might be pleased. So he bade them get together upon Mount Gerizim, which is by them looked upon as the most holy of all the mountains, and assured them that when they were come thither, he would show them those sacred vessels which were laid under that place, because Moses put them there. So they came thither armed, and thought the discourse of the man probable, and as they abode at a certain village, which was called Tirathaba, they got the rest together to them, and desired to go up the mountain in a great multitude together. So basically what's happening is a prophet is telling the Samaritans that we need to go to Mount Gerizim. That was the holy place for the Samaritans, and there we're going to find these secret articles, that sacred vessels that Moses had placed there. So they go upon the mountain together. But Pilate prevented their going up by seizing upon the roads with a great band of horsemen and footmen, who fell upon those that were gotten together in the village. And when they came to an action, some of them they slew, others of them they put to flight, and took a great many alive, the principal of whom, and also the most potent of those that fled away, Pilate ordered to be slain. But when this tumult was appeased, the Samaritan Senate sent an embassy to Vitellius, a man that had been consul and who was now president of Syria, and accused Pilate of the murder of those that were killed, for that they did not go to Tiratheba in order to revolt from the Romans, but to escape the violence of Pilate. So Vitellius sent to Marcellus, a friend of his, to take care of the affairs of Judea, and ordered Pilate to go to Rome, to answer before the emperor to the accusation of the Jews. So Pilate, when he had tarried 10 years in Judea, made haste to Rome, and this in obedience to the orders of Vitellius, which he durst not contradict. But before he could get to Rome, Tiberius was dead. So this incident involving these Samaritans is actually going to be the downfall of Pilate. So I conclude with a couple of quotes that come from Eusebius. He writes, Pilate's downfall occurred in the following manner. A leader of the Samaritans had promised to disclose the sacred treasures which Moses was reported to have concealed upon Mount Gerizim, and the Samaritans came together in great numbers from all quarters. Pilate, supposing the gathering to be with rebellious purpose, sent troops against them and defeated them with great slaughter. The Samaritans complained to Vitellius, governor of Syria, who sent Pilate to Rome in 36 AD to answer the charges brought against him. Upon reaching Rome, he found Tiberius dead and Caius Caligula upon the throne. He was unsuccessful in his attempt to defend himself, and according to tradition was banished to Vienna in Gaul, where a monument is still shown as Pilate's tomb. According to another tradition, he committed suicide upon the mountain near Lake Lucerne, which bears his name. Then this last quote. It is worthy of note that Pilate himself, who was governor in the time of our Savior, is reported to have fallen into such misfortunes under Caius, whose times we are recording, that he was forced to become his own murderer and executioner, and thus divine vengeance, as it seems, was not long in overtaking him. This is stated by those Greek historians who have recorded the Olympiads, together with the respective events which have taken place in each period. So as I said, those are some incidents recorded from and about the life of Pilate that hopefully reveals a little bit of background information that might make the study that we're looking at of Pilate and how he's handling the trial of Jesus a little clearer. Not the most exciting thing, I understand, but hopefully some source material that will be beneficial for further study. Thank you for watching this video, and I pray that God would just use this information in a way to further your studies as you seek to honor Him.